I have two very important pieces of news to share with you. If you are a Christian and you don't pay attention to these pieces of news, you are doing yourself a great disservice. First of all, recently it has come to light who the inventor of Bitcoin is. And you might wonder, as a Christian, who cares? Like, what does that really matter? Hold on, it is very important that you know this. So first of all, if we know that during the reign of the Antichrist, that one of the marks, or that the person is the Antichrist, is that you will have to take his mark, and if you do not take that mark, you will not be able to buy or sell. Now, in a day and age where we are fastly leaving paper money and going to digital money, there has been much talk about a one world currency, and even some of the big nations have even gotten together and like, should we create our own cryptocurrency or our own type of currency? So this is a constant thing, but Bitcoin is being seen as, and cryptocurrency is being seen universally as a way for nations to interact without there ever being inflation. So for instance, there are only so many Bitcoins in circulation, and past that, the only thing that can happen is their value can go up, but there can't be more Bitcoins. The code stops, the code ends. But the more you find out about this, Bitcoin was actually written to help take power away from countries and supposedly give it more to people, or to more evenly distribute things. And I think there might be more to it than that going on. But Craig Wright, the more you find out about him, you find out this man is incredibly brilliant. So one of the first things that concerns me in finding out about him is he has his doctorate in theology. So basically, he went somewhere and studied the Bible. Now, he's not a conservative, because if he was a conservative and had his doctorate, he'd probably be pastoring and ministering somewhere. But this man is smart enough to have his doctorate in that field, and now he is pursuing two other doctorates simultaneously, one of which he is taking under French-speaking teachers. If that doesn't begin to catch your attention, he also has a personal trainer. He is taking boxing, and on top of that, he takes 30 minutes of Mandarin every single morning, which makes me wonder, what is his long-term goal with learning Mandarin? But as he begins to talk about finance and why he wrote the Bitcoin code, you begin to see some lights go on in him as he is talking about taking power away from the tech sector and putting it into different hands. And when he talks about power, you begin to understand that he understands power. And as he begins to talk about this, you also find out that he has hundreds of patents, and his goal is to have, by the course of his lifetime, to have 10,000 patents. Now, what does this matter? Well, for anybody that keeps up with this, have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Bill Gates? Have you ever heard of this guy? Who hasn't? And he only has a few patents that we know of. Now, maybe he's got hundreds too. I don't think that's the case, but we know he's got a few patents. And by that, he has been able to influence and shape the world. You've got to understand that billionaires have lots of power and pull. In fact, we know of one billionaire, George Soros, who actually just about single-handedly funds a lot of the Democratic Party in their push and agenda. So billionaires are powerful in magnitude, and you've got to understand that this guy, Craig Wright, is already a billionaire. He is incredibly smart, and his goal is to have thousands and thousands of patents, and his understanding of capitalism is terrifying. And here's what I mean by that, because it is so in line with what is true, good, and productive. Well, why would that be scary? Let me see if I can explain. There doesn't seem to really be anything much worse than a non-God believing conservative. Why is that? Because conservatism is the proper functioning and role of things in this world. But this only works because God instigated and incorporated these things this way, and it's all supposed to be for His glory and magnification. But yet, men have found out that by accomplishment, by ambition, by promoting or going after things, that they can build themselves up. And capitalism, even though its function is for the people, it is often used to just build up the individual. Now, and here's the reason this is scary. Right now, the pendulum has swung so far left, and people are fed up with the swing to the left. At least that's my understanding as I see it. The pendulum begin to swing the other way with people leaving the Democratic Party, with people saying, hey, we don't want to teach our kids transgenderism. I mean, what's wrong with you? Why do you want to dress like that? Why do you want to do these things? And we don't want men dominating women's sports. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. And so we're beginning to see the pendulum swing heavily the other direction. And if that is the case, someone like Craig Wright can step onto the scene powerfully. And if you saw some of his interview again about power and his understanding of capitalism, he is going to be so pro-capitalist that he will be hard to stop. If Bill Gates has been influential, this guy might be 10 times so, and he's just getting started. It's already seen that Bitcoin is influencing the world. There are 20,000 other currencies built off the concept of a digital currency going back to, there might have been some other prototypes before this, but Bitcoin is working as a currency, and it has changed things. It has attracted over $1 trillion. I think it's even more than that into this sector. It is going to affect everything, and this guy knows and understands it and is seeking more. Now, I want to be very careful here. I don't think that he necessarily is the Antichrist, because I think, as I've stated in a previous video, I think the Antichrist will be incredibly amazing and so many other things, and I don't quite get that from this Craig guy, but with his mastery of right principles, and he's easy to catch you off guard because your expectations are not what you would think at the beginning, and then he kind of pulls you in. Maybe. Now, he also, from what I understand in the video I saw about him, he is married, and so that doesn't seem to quite fit with the scriptures, because the Bible talks about the Antichrist not really caring about the love of women. But we don't know how that's played out yet. Does that just mean that he later denies his wife? Does that mean that she comes out later and says, we've never really had relationships or anything like that? I don't know any of that about Craig's life, and I don't want to call him the Antichrist. That is silly. What I do want to tell you to do is to pay attention and to watch, is because he is going to influence things heavily like you can't imagine. It is coming. Now, if I don't want to throw that label on him, but there is a label that needs to be thrown to the next gentleman I speak of, and his name is, or he was born with the name of Solomon Judah, or what the Jews are now calling the Yanaka. And this is substantial news, and here is why. Anyone who knows the Jewish culture and knows the high standards of the Pharisees, when you look all the way back to Paul's day, Paul was one of the most educated men of his time, with increasingly higher and highest standards. You had to be supremely educated to be a Pharisee or to be in the Jewish ranks. And these men were so educated and so sure of their traditions and so sure of their writings and so sure of their interpretation and so sure of their system that they would not even accept Jesus as the Messiah. Think about this. Their standards were so high they wouldn't accept Jesus as the Messiah. Now, the Jews have kept these high standards, and the Jews are not easily impressed. These guys are incredibly educated. They're incredibly studious. And so it takes someone of extremely high caliber to impress them. And this guy has been born, and he's here, and he's about 33 to 34 years old. This information is scant on the internet. It is there, but it is limited. You can tell by how many views are on these videos that most people haven't heard of this yet, but it is there, and he is real. And it's troubling, and I'll tell you why. Like, number one, this guy is a prodigy. From what I understand, he heard music when he was little, and they brought him a keyboard, and within like a few hours, he had taught himself to play 3 or 4 songs. You know, someone like Mozart or Beethoven, like somebody that was obviously an incredible genius. Well, on top of this guy's devout. I'll tell you, I have been living for Christ my entire life, and I have been a serious Christian. But when I look at this guy's rabbinical focus, I'm ashamed. Like, this guy is more devout in the Jewish faith than I am in the Christian faith, and he has grown up in this caliber. So if you can imagine a super prodigy that is devout in the Jewish faith, he is making headway and a lot of changes. From what I understand, he has memorized the Torah, maybe the Talmud, and there are all kind of branches of thought that, according to the upper echelon rabbis, that he has mastered all these areas of thought, and they are giving him total leeway, and all of these rabbis are calling him the Messiah. They are calling him the chosen one. And you're familiar with the denominations. You know how, denominations are split, and it's hard can't get them to get along and all this kind of stuff. Well, Judaism, with its extremely high standards, has split into, 3 branches, maybe more, but it is split into 3 main branches. And this guy comes along, and he is now pulling them together, and they are beginning to unify under his leadership. And he doesn't mind them calling him the Yanaka. If this hasn't caught your attention yet, the Jews wouldn't accept Jesus. They haven't accepted anybody for 2,000 years as their Messiah. Then he's alive right here now? What are your thoughts? I mean, you really need to think about this. We need to pay attention to this. And on top of that, this guy has some qualities. Like, he has been avoiding the limelight. He has been avoiding media attention for years now. Years and years and years. The Jews wear hats, and he's got this hat on, and so many of the times that they've tried to photograph him or talk to him or whatever, he's got his hat tilted down where you can't see his face, because he sure gives off the appearance of humility. Man, if the Antichrist or the false prophets arise, so many of these television celebrity evil pastors, when they pop up, you can see through things and see the slime in their character, and you can see the pride, and you can see the arrogance in them if you look close enough. You do not see that in this guy. He radiates humility. And so all of these top rabbis are endorsing him as the chosen one, as the great one, as the Messiah. We need to pay attention. And all this on top of the red heifers being shipped over to Israel, on top of them buying land to sacrifice the red heifers on so they can build the temple. Now, I know a lot of people are like, the third temple doesn't have to exist for Jesus to come back or to fulfill the end time prophecies, etc. That's their opinion, that's their position, but now it's looking very much like the third temple is going to be built. On top of that, and this just start getting your attention, one of the reasons the Jews rejected Muhammad as their leader is he said, I bring to you special teaching. And I bet he did, considering where he got his teaching from. But he brought his teachings over to the Jews, and they were like, well, you know, if you're the great one, if you're fantastic, etc., do some miracles for us. And Muhammad could not. And so Muhammad had to go elsewhere and, you know, kind of shift his religion around to get some following. This guy, Solomon Judah, or as he likes to be called, Hezekiah ben David, they are claiming that he's doing miracles. If you read the pages of Scripture, it talks about the false prophet, or there being signs and wonders at the end time. And, you know, we think it's a fantastic thing in our church when somebody's healed of cancer. But now the other side is openly beginning to share that, oh, their Messiah is doing miracles. And to tie all this together, if you think about this, who are some of the number one capitalists in the world? The Jews. And who are some of the those that know money better than anybody else in the world? The Jews. And so that kind of points me back to the whole Bitcoin and the Craig Wright possible connection. I don't know. But what I do know is if you are not paying attention, this will catch you off guard. Don't let that happen. I also challenge you to see my next video on Apophis, because that is right around the corner.